Good morning, everyone. I welcome those who have joined us today in person, as well as those who are online, for this talk with Mr. Atsushi Sakahara. He is, of course, a Tokyo subway sarin attack victim, as well as a film director. And those of you who are online have probably not been able to see the trailer that we just showed here live, as well as a clip from the film. I urge you to go and look up this film and watch the trailer immediately, because it will tell you a lot about the film as well as about Mr. Sakahara. Of course, Mr. Sakahara is a victim of the March 20th, 1995 sarin gas attack on the Tokyo subway system, in which 13 people were killed and close to 6,000 people were injured. He's been a vocal and passionate spokesperson regarding the attack and the process of recovery, and he's also been critical of the government's lack of support for many of the victims. In the long search for answers about how and why this happened, and in the process of healing, Mr. Sakahara has written books. He has started a blog called Before After Om, which you can find online. A podcast, yes, I'm sorry, a blog as well as a podcast. And also, he has directed now a film. And it is a most remarkable film, a documentary in which he goes with the current face of Olive, the successor group to Om Shinrikyo cult, on a journey, and has a long, long conversation with him, so that perhaps for the first time ever, we see a victim and a cult member in conversation. And gradually, because they have much in common in their past, a friendship seems to develop. That film is called Me and the Cult Leader, a modern report on the banality of evil, and it was scheduled to be released last year in Japan on the 25th anniversary of the sarin attack in March, but of course COVID-19 unfortunately postponed it. It is now going to be released on March 20th at Image Forum in Tokyo and other theaters across Japan. In Tokyo, it will be shown with English subtitles at all screenings. I will just mention the film was heralded on its world premiere last year at the Sheffield Doc Fest. It went on to play all the major documentary festivals, and it will next be seen in competition at the Hong Kong International Film Festival at the beginning of April. So, Mr. Sakahara will now be speaking about his experience and about his feeling that the Japanese government has continued to turn its back on the victims. So we will listen first to his speech in English, and there will be ample time for questions afterwards.
Thank you very much for introduction, and I'm quite honored to have this opportunity to talk about my experience and what I think and what I've been going through as a victim. And before I start going into that, I'd like to mention that I really appreciate that Hong Kong International Film Festival helped me to complete my film. And without them, their support, I couldn't finish my film, to be honest. And that's the power of the film that can be made through international collaboration. Now, I'd like to talk about my experience. I published this book 2015. This is the book about the dialogue between me and Joyu Fumihiro, the former executive member of Om Shinrikyo, and maybe infamously well-known PR person of Om Shinrikyo around the time the Om attacked the subway with sarin gas. Toward the end of this book, I said that when we want to overcome or clear up the mess caused by the Om Shinrikyo, we need to deal with the three things. One, Asahara has to be executed. I'm not a fan of this penalty. I'm not a supporter of it. If we can dispense it, that's better, I think. But Asahara did quite mind control on those people who once a member of the cult, including Joyu Fumihiro. So I think that in this particular case, the execution of the Asahara is needed. And that was done 2018, July 6, as far as I remember, okay? The second one is we have to resolve the issue of still remaining cult group, like Aleph and Hikari no Wa and some other minor group. I think my film will serve to that issues at a certain degree. I hope it will serve at a certain degree. Third issue is that today's major topic I would like to discuss is about the victim. Still, some of the victims from the Sarin gas attack are suffering from the post-effect severely, and they are having a very hard time to survive in this society. And how it happens, what is like being a victim, I'd like to share. It's quite it can be long speech, but please listen carefully. March 20th, 1995, I survived in the subway. And I left Japan, and I came back from the States 2001, summer after our film won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. 2004, I contacted the Victims Association to join because there were no direct victims who inhaled sarin gas are talking about necessarily a support program from the government. Someone has to do it, and I tried to stand up. The Victims Association's legal counsel, Yuji Nakamura, called me and then told me we are not active. Okay? So basically, I was asked not to join, basically. 2004, Asahara's death penalty was sentenced. 2005, I contacted the congressman, one of the Koizumi children, Yoshihiro Seki, at LDP. And by phone, I talked to him. He told me, Atsushi, you should join a group. Thank you very much. I was not allowed to join a group. What can I do? Correct? Then 2005 or 6, I don't remember exactly. There's another group, non-profit organization, that helps or support the victims from the sarin gas attack. And I happened to meet them, and I was asked to be a board member. And I became a board member. I don't remember exactly, 2005 or 2006, but around the time I became a board member. Okay? And then 2007 or 8, I think Japanese Congress passed a law for the special support program for victims from the sarin gas attack. So now, opposition party became stronger. So I contacted Seiji Maehara, congressman, who was about to be a Minister of Foreign Affairs. And he said, Atsushi, I understand your concern. I'm going to talk in Congress. Please write a memo for me. You know, as a victim, writing such a memo is a daunting task. You know, involved with the PTSD and etc. It's so hard. Also, I was a board member of Recovery Support Center. I cannot do it as an individual, so I consulted to the NPO. NPO, the chair, told me, Atsushi, we cannot let Mr. Maehara stand off. The law passed unanimously in Congress. If we let him stand out, the law already we passed is going to be problematic, and it takes too much time or whatever it is. So the NPO took over my case. So I lost the chance to speak up in the society, you know. And couple of years after that incident, I was asked to leave the NPO. I was depromoted from the board member, as a board member, and then I decided to leave the NPO. And I was cornered economically, and then also in health. You know, I became in a very, very tough situation. And a monk of the Nambawa temple at Henro pilgrimage is a friend of mine. He asked me, would you come to Tokushima? And then sure, I went, and then I did maybe 4 or 5 rounds of a shooting trip in Henro pilgrimage, spending a year to cover 4 seasons, okay? Toward the end of 2012, I had the time, nothing to do. So thanks to the suggestion, I decided to work for Yoshihiro Seki's political campaign for the congressmanship. He was not re-elected, and he was not a congressman at the time, but he wanted to get back to his office. I worked hard, very hard, from 8 a.m. to midnight with chronic fatigue with Sarin gas attack. Okay? And the politician doesn't care so much about me if I get up early in the morning, right after the dawn. I'm passing flyers to the voters in the electorate. He was concerned about how I look, because I looked so pale. That doesn't look good to the voters. But he didn't care about me at all. He won the election. He came back to his office. Then that morning, he told me, Atsushi, I understand your pain. I understand the post-effect very, very well. What did he do after that? Nothing. He did nothing. And 2013, on my way to Tokyo for errands from Shikoku, I lost my consciousness in the airplane. All of a sudden. Maybe I accumulated my fatigue. I don't know. Nobody knows. And the trivia is that ANA kindly sent me to the hospital, and they never helped me really to find out what happened in the airplane. So I can advise you, if you fly with ANA internationally, and then if you lose your consciousness suddenly, before it happens, ask your next passenger exchange information. That's what basically asked me. I am not allowed to contact a passenger sitting next to me. Please do so. I don't know how you can tell beforehand, but please do so, okay? Then I found that I experienced a spine complexion fracture. I went back to Kyoto. Then started a documentary, 2014. I shot my film mostly in March of 2015. And summer of 2015, I met Dr. Anthony Tu. He is regarded one of the most knowledgeable toxic weapons. He gave a lecture at Kyoto University. I went to see him. I asked him, what is the post-effect from sarin gas? He said, no post-effect. Really? I was shocked. But he was sensitive enough to catch my words. And 2018, execution took place. And following that, he published a book about the dialogue and experience with the executed convict Tomomasa Nakamura, a former doctor. And in that book, he introduced a medical journal article on the post effect. And it says a lot of people are still suffering, and there are some delayed post effects. So that tells that the government unanimously decided decision for the support program. Support program was based on the invalid scientific understanding. Okay? And when I experienced spine compression fracture, I contacted Yoshihiro Seki again. He repeated to me that this is Atsushi, unanimously decided. And there is nothing much you can do. We'll see. 2019, I contacted the council of the Victims Association again. Was I not allowed to join the Victims Association because for some particular reasons? He says, no, we don't generally accept any victims to join as a new member. Okay? That's what he wrote to me. And my film is completed. Finally, I'm going to release my film this year. Then now I'd like to ask you, do you name anyone who survived in the subway gas attack and still suffering direct victim? Can you name? Probably you cannot. Why does this happen? That is my concern. And now I am here, and I have done much of my talk here. In essence, what you'd like to share, my opinion is, in essence, if you try to solve a scientific problem politically, that always goes wrong. That's same for COVID, that's same for Fukushima, that's same for anything. I hope that people will learn something out of my experience and then make the society better. I truly hope that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sakahara. I would just like to confirm that actually your complaint is not just about the government and the 2008 law that is called the Act Relating to the Payment of Benefits for the Relief of Aum Shinrikyo crime victims, but also with the Sarin gas attack victims association, which you feel has not given voice properly. Right.
Right. That's sort of the policy of democracy, Japanese, probably I should say Japanese democracy. I don't plan to criticize them. They have their own reasons, probably good excuses. They can explain why they didn't take me in. But that is a policy of democracy. Why? Because can you name any victim? No. Why? I'm here to present. I don't want to be well known. I don't want to be famous. But I need it. There's no one who does that, right? Yeah.
So tell me, how did you decide that your voice would best be heard through documentary film?
About what? About this, my experience?
Yes.
This is a separate thing. Film is film. Film has to be my artwork, and then the topic which I told today is not included in the film. I know, because you see here it says, nobody pays attention to victim. If I make a film about the culprit or the Omu, people will listen to, right? No? People don't care. Previously, I showed 2 minutes footage out of my film. I go into the flower ceremony, annual anniversary flower ceremony. Nobody cares about me afterwards, Nobody cares about me. All the media wants to make questions to the Hiroshi Araki, but no one does to me, except foreign media. Arte did it, except the Arte person. No one really asked questions. That's what the Japanese media is about.
So you actually also have a gripe with the media because you feel that they are favoring the perpetrator's story,
Yes.
the cult story over the victim's story.
Yes. Another thing which I failed to mention is actually 2019, I wrote a letter to the former police chief, Takaji Kunimatsu, who was shot by a sniper. He was a chief during the Omu Saringas attack. He wrote to me back. You know what he suggested? Ask help, ask the Congress to help you. How can I do it? I knocked the door of the politician. He asked me to join the group, and I was not allowed to join the group. How can I do it? Tell me. I wrote to him back. He never replied. You see, I'm taking every single possible actions in democracy. Nothing I could do, right? Don't you think? Where is the democracy in Japan? That's what I want to say.
I have many, many questions
Yes.
to ask Mr. Sakahara. Let me first ask if anyone here in the room would like to ask a question.
Okay.
Yes, and if so, please come to one of the microphones on either end and let us know your affiliation, please.
弁護士 .com の山下と申します。日本語で質問させていただいてよろしいでしょうか。
いいですよ。僕がサマライズして自分で答えます。Okay, I will summarize it in English and I'll answer. All right, don't worry.
事件から26年経って風化していく側面っていうのは否めないかなとは思うんですけども、その中で坂原監督は映画を撮られて編集されてきたと、その間に坂原さんの中でどういうことを考えて、あとその考えがなんか変化してきた部分みたいなところはあるのかっていうのを教えていただけないかなというふうに思っています。
それは具体的にどの部分に？
その期間がっていうことですか？
例えば映画を作る過程で映画について、それとも社会について？
映画を作る過程で社会について
Yes, he asked me about how I transformed myself, my view on the society through the production or post-production of this film. And my answer is yes. Through this, I have some very close. I was fortunate enough to have very close relationship with a journalist. And then they explained, particularly one person, but he explained well to why people behave that way, because that is one good excuse for the media, or reason why they do not cover me well, or the other victims well, is that, because they don't have a particular contact person to do it, like a victims association, right? So if you want to write or interview with the victim, what you can do, look up on the Google and find someone contact, right? That's the way. But for the efficiency or maybe for their job, they don't do that. So I'm learning about why I'm not allowed to join or I'm not covered, or any other, including whatever it is, victims are not covered. Also, why, I'm having hints why the Victims Association didn't accept me. They have their own reasons. I don't believe that they have a very evil idea. No, I don't think so. But this is the policy of democracy. That's what I'm learning. If I have spent enough time, I would say, oh, they are the evil. They don't understand. That's what I would say. I understand where they are. I kind of feel. I won't say that because I've not interviewed them directly. Yes.
Thank you. Do we have other questions in the room at the moment? Okay. Since you've just brought up the concept of evil, I want to ask you about your quite brilliant subtitle for the film, which is a modern report on the banality of evil, of course referencing Hannah Arendt's 1963 book on Adolf Eichmann. And I'm just wondering how you decided to choose this subtitle, and also whether you think that one must be evil to do evil.
Could you please repeat the last sentence again?
The last sentence I'll repeat after you answer the first question.
Okay, how I decided.
Yes.
Okay. I was thinking about what name would be good for international audience. And I struggled and struggled. And head of my international sales team, Jacob Wong, gave me the name. That is a brilliant name. I'm familiar with Hannah Arendt. I had the chance to spend 1 year in New York or New Jersey with my friend who happened to be a Jewish rabbi. So I'm familiar with those. And then that is a brilliant name because Hannah Arendt was criticized when he wrote the book. The victims were Jewish. Some Jewish are also closely working or had some good relationship with Nazis, Being a Jew does not necessarily mean that they are right. They are always with justice. And she was very criticized for that. And now I'm a victim. A whole society can criticize or bash almost Shindikyo easily, but it is hard to criticize the victims. That's a reality, right? So that portrays my situation very well. So I think that's a brilliant title, so I took it.
I also think the main title is brilliant, Me and the Cult Leader, because it communicates something very special about the film, that there's actually a lot of humor in it. This is something that you don't expect at all. But this is Mr. Sakahara's true nature, to try to deflect hard times with humor, and he uses a lot of it in his conversations with this cult PR executive, Mr. Hiroshi Araki, as they journey back to Kyoto, where they're both from, and find other parallels. And of course, he is searching for an answer. Why did it happen? But also, why did Mr. Araki stay with the cult after it happened? He was not responsible personally for what happened. And why is he continuing today to be the PR face of the cult? Do you feel like you got answers? Was the journey worth it?
Yes, it was worthwhile, and I had a good sense how he joined, why he stays, and how the mind control by Omu still manipulates him. And I think I succeeded in showing it on the screen.
If we have no questions from the room at the moment, let me go ahead and ask a few from online.
Yes.
This is from Ilgin Yorulmaz from BBC World Turkish Service. And she asks, as a victim, do you feel that justice has been served with the execution in 2008 of Shoko Asahara, the Om Shinrikyo cult leader, and the 6 other cult members?
It's a very, very hard question. In my personal opinion, I am with a position. It's a very abnormal position because I'm a victim, and I need. I cannot make a statement objectively, but Asahara's execution was needed. Others, I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. Asahara's execution was needed, and especially for me. When I was with my ex-wife, and
His ex-wife, by the way, was a cult member at one point.
right, she registered, and she mentioned, her mother mentioned that when I was with her, I was about to write my autobiography, not including her personal life story about myself, only about myself. And her mother told me she didn't like the idea. She told me, Atsushi Sakahara is not excused yet. So that is my somehow. That is what it means to me. So that was very important, personal. But if I'm a lawyer, or maybe I would answer differently, My personal feeling is that, yes.
And how do you feel now that you've made the film? Do you feel that the process of healing is complete? It doesn't seem like...
I'm almost complete. I think I'm done. I've done it, and mostly because I did not cop out from facing it. I overcame it. That's my small triumph, personal triumph. Not because I found the truth. I sensed the truth, but I didn't run away from the attack. That's the most important things for me.
Also, one of the extraordinary things about this film, and I highly encourage you all to make sure that you watch it, is that during the course of this essentially 1 week spent together with Mr. Araki, Mr. Sakahara is alternately bullying and palsy, very gently probing. And in the end, we come away with this feeling that listening, asking the right questions, continuing to ask them, and listening to what the other side has to say, in this case, Olive, what that side has to say can really help our understanding as we go forward, trying to solve any problem, perhaps related to terrorism and other issues in the world today. How do you feel about that? Were you expecting that kind of result?
Yes, that was I wanted to achieve through the film. I'm a victim, and if I say anything about Omo, that carries a very heavy meaning. Journalists cannot oppose to me. I'm fine with it. If I say that carries that meaning, it's heavy. So I wanted to be truthful. In what regard I can be truthful that was the answer I was searching for, spending 5 years for post-production. What is the truth to me is the feeling when I finished the trip I had. I wanted to recreate the feeling when I watched the film again. And that is my truth. And then so I can share my truth with the audience. Yes, in that sense, I think Junko Watanabe, my editor in Paris, France, did a fabulous job for me.
We have another question from Ilgun Yorulmaz from BBC World Turkish Service. There are reports that COVID-19 pandemic has enabled religious cults to recruit more easily among potential targets who are anxious and fearful.
Yes.
Do you see such a trend?
Yes, that's a worldwide trend. You know, some of a Hollywood producer contacted me, and they tell me that because of the COVID, people start entering into a cult or something. So that tells that people are susceptible to cults more under the COVID-19.
And they contacted you because they're interested in
The theme.
producing something?
Yeah,
with
sometimes, yes, sometimes like they want to work with my film, they want to maybe, you know, like some parts TV series, sometimes that some people say, or maybe some expired season, the director wants to make a documentary on the Omu, and then would you be able to appear in my film? Those things happens, yes.
Do you have plans to follow up with another similar film, or?
No, I think I'm done. I'm done. This is enough. This is enough. They asked me to appear. I would be happy to do. I'm done. I'm through with this, you know.
And have you kept your iconic yellow jacket, the one that you wear throughout this film?
I keep it at home, yes.
as a kind of lucky talisman.
That's right, that's right.
You know, speaking of recruiting, one of the things that you're consistently asking Mr. Araki in the film is, why are you continuing to recruit? And in fact, we learned that they are actively recruiting, although he tells you at one point, some years later, that he's going to stop, that they're going to stop.
I was quite happy when I heard. Maybe I misheard, you know. I don't know. That was like early in the morning next year. I spent a couple hours at Hibiya Park, and I thought he said, Atsushi, I understand, I would stop recruiting. But maybe
that was just your fond hope.
I was imagining, you know, maybe, I don't know.
Has Mr. Araki seen the film yet? And what was his reaction?
Not yet. I tried to contact him, but he doesn't answer. So, yeah.
Do you want to show the film to him? Do you think that he will be open to viewing the film?
I think somewhere or another he will go to see his film. He has the artistic ego to see how he looks in the film. So he will come to the theater secretly, you know, with a mask now, you know, and
yes.
then also, yeah.
Easy to disguise ourselves these days.
Yes.
We have another question. This one is from Richard Susilo at Tribune News Indonesia. Are you interested in distributing the movie outside Japan, he asks. Where is the target? America or Asia? Which country and why? Why are you interested in distributing overseas?
I hope, you know, every single director would do the same thing. I hope that internationally, everywhere, people watch my film. You know, that's my business. So.
Okay, so that's your kind of ego talking.
That's right.
Now, what about the fact that, of course, it's a universal story in a way, and that it can appeal to people everywhere who might be vastly helped by it?
Yeah, and also I have an international sales agent who takes care of international market.
So outside of all of these film festivals, we can expect it to be distributed.
Yes, I hope.
At some point in the future. Okay. Yes. Do we have more questions in the room? Anyone willing to come up to the microphone and ask questions? All right, I'm going to ask another question that's sort of related to the film. You were actually a victim observer at the trial of one of the final fugitives, or maybe the final fugitive.
That's right.
In 2015. And you started shooting the film in 2014, you said, but the bulk of the film was shot just over this kind of 2-week period.
That's right.
In 2015. Do you include footage of the trial, or is that not possible?
In Japan, we are not allowed to shoot in the court, so I don't have any footage. I wish I could, but we are not allowed.
And how did you decide which footage? I know you mentioned Yuka Watanabe, your Paris-based editor for the film. How did you decide with her which footage to use from what you shot, which would focus your message best?
I had 3 cuts: first cut, second cut, third cut. Third cut is the final cut. First cut I did with another editor, but we had different opinions and different background. It didn't work out. He didn't want to include the past of my ex-wife and then the issues with the ex-wife. So
this was a Japanese editor?
Yes,
or?
Japanese
Okay.
editor. Maybe I am un-Japanese, too un-Japanese, but that's what happened to me. And that will change the message quite significantly. It's simple. It's victim and a perpetrator side, right, guy. And that's not good. I cannot be responsible. So I decided to go for the second cut. I cut it by myself. Then I was not, trying to be very serious because I'm a victim and it's dauntingly heavy pressure as a victim to make this film. And the film was interesting enough, and some of my peers really liked my cut, but I don't think it would sell well, enjoyable to watch. It's too hard. And and then for the third cut, before the third cut, the Paul Chan, my co-producer based in Hong Kong, joined the production. And I discussed and showed some of the footage, like I laugh with the Hiroshi Araki, and she suggested that Atsushi, that is very, very cinematic. People like you would never laugh with him. Okay, I understand that. And then I spent maybe several hours with Junko Watanabe in Paris. And we decided to make it a little bit more cheerful Atsushi Sakahara in the film, and that is the third cut and final cut.
Great. Let me ask this, taking it back away from the film, but to your primary message about Japan turning its back on the victims. Do you see that there's anything that can possibly be done to reach the government now without going through a victims group, which appears to be fairly inactive, according to you? Or is there another way to reach them and amend the what you see as the injustice that's been done?
I think, as you mentioned in the introduction, my film is introduced, invited to the competition for Firebird Awards. If it wins, it will be longlisted for the Oscar 2022. If it wins the Oscar, I hope, can Japan ignore me? All right, that's my ambition. Can Japan ignore me? Okay, please ignore me, right? Then can Japanese government ignore me? That is my challenge. That is the approach I do, right? Yeah, that's why I truly hope that not for my own glory. If it wins, Japan cannot ignore, and I don't want to be so active member of any sort of group. I hope someone take care of it and people who are suffering will be in a better condition. That's what I hope.
I hope for your sake that that dream comes true, but I do have to remind you that when Hirokazu Koreeda won the Palme d'Or at Cannes
Right.
for his film Shoplifters, the government was fairly successful at ignoring him.
That's right. But you see, the reason why I'm talking here is I want to have the international community's involvement. You know, I do it by myself, if I make a great film by myself alone, showing it at a film festival or in Japan, they ignore me. But I am with you, right? So that makes Japanese government ignore me harder, you know. I hope.
In our attempts to also get the word out to the rest of the international community, not just Japanese, because of course Mr. Sakahara will be appearing with the film in Tokyo several times over the course of the run to talk in Japanese. But he also will be going online to conduct Q&A sessions for those, everywhere else. Hopefully, you will have gone to Image Forum and seen the film before watching. But those will be held on Tuesday, March 30th, and Friday, April 9th, both of them in the evening, and you can find information by going to Aganai.net. I also recommend that you listen to some of the podcasts in which Mr. Sakahara and his co-producer in Hong Kong attempt to give some context to the issues surrounding this cult. It's called Before After Om, and that is aganai.net.com. Sorry.
.net.
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 Aganai.net / Before After Om, and those are absolutely worthwhile listening to. If we don't have any further questions in the room, let me ask Mr. Sakahara to share a kind of, they always do this in Japan. Do you have a message for your audience?
I'm a film director. If I have a message aside from my film, I shouldn't be a director. So only one message I have is please come to see the theater to watch my film. That's all I can tell.
Yes,
Right?
I think we've amply extended that message and that invitation. So we hope all of you will turn out for the film, which starts again on March 20th at Image Forum in Tokyo and elsewhere around Japan. You can find all the details online.
Yes.
Yes.
One thing
Yes.
which I would like to mention as a final note is that if you watch my film, I go into anniversary ceremony in a limit zone. I was allowed by the kind Japanese rail, chikatetsu, subway, PR. And I think I made impossibles possibles. That happened in my film. A lot of miracles happened in my film. So please watch and find those, and that's my hope.
And my final comment is you will find it a very rewarding, enriching experience, so I do hope you get a chance to do that. Thank you again so much, Atsushi Sakahara, for joining us today and talking about your life before, after Om, and your attempts to help give voice to the underrepresented victims' voices in Japan. Thank you all very much for joining us online and for joining us in the room, and we will now sign off.
Thank you.